and welcome to the debate. I'm your host, Sana Maqbool, with you at PTV World. In today's show, we will be taking a look at two important stories. The first is with reference to Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's maiden visit to Saudi Arabia. He has left on the invitation of the Saudi Crown Prince, and he will be there from today to the 30th of April. There are going to be a number of agendas on discussion. There's going to be, of course, talk about economic and financial assistance from Saudi Arabia, and the hope that we get deferred payment facilities from Saudi Arabia, among other economic facilities from the country. With regards to that, we're also looking at further engagement on different areas of mutual interest and on bilateral relations as a whole as well. This visit is going to be an important one for the new government, since it's the first one. Is going to be something which is going to impact the way our relationship is going to be taken forward, and also the way Saudi Arabia can provide assistance for the economic challenges that currently confront the government, and that, of course, is a priority for the new government as well. So we're going to be exploring this visit and the expected outcomes, and what is going to be the result of the conversations being held between the top leadership. Our second segment is going to take a look at the situation in Sri Lanka, which unfortunately is undergoing an economic crisis at the moment. There have been talks with the IMF and the World Bank as well, and they have talked about how the talks went fruitful and will be providing a package to help ease the burden on Sri Lanka as well. But with regards to the economic situation in the country, the evolving scenario, and then, of course, the way it's going to impact the IMF packages and the World Bank in providing aid, and then, of course, its relationships with countries like India as well, which also is someone that Sri Lanka is looking towards for help and assistance in this time of crisis. We're going to explore what is needed for the economic situation to turn around in Sri Lanka, and what the current situation means in terms of the IMF packages as well. These are two segments for the show today, and as usual, we've been joined in the studios by Raja Faisal and Farrukh Pitafi. And for our first segment, we'll be joined by three guests. We've been joined right now by Nasir Ali Khan, who's a former ambassador, who's joined us on Skype, and we'll be joined soon by two other guests, and I'll introduce them as they join us in the show. Thank you very much, Mr. Nasir, for being with us in the debate. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has left for Saudi Arabia, and he's going to be there on a 3-day visit. It's going to be an important visit for the Prime Minister and his delegation as well, especially when we're looking at economic assistance from Saudi Arabia. With reference to the kind of packages that have been discussed earlier and what we're expecting now, what do you think is going to be the best possible outcome in terms of the deferred payment facilities from Saudi Arabia?
Well, I hope that if there is a dire need for us to have this assistance, that the Saudis, as usual, will be forthcoming. But having said that, I really wish that our priority was not seeking loans and seeking assistance, and especially for budgetary support, because it's more or less like throwing good money at bad. We seem to be in a vicious cycle right now, and we need to find ways to get out of this. What are the primary causes for the economic woes that we have? Primarily, it is the current account deficit. And, you know, the current account deficit by June will be between 18 to $20 billion. What does that mean? It means that we are importing $20 billion worth more of goods than we are exporting. So this is the reason that we are in trouble. Now,
Right.
What that does is it devalues our money, and it puts a pressure again on our debts, because every time our money devalues, we have to pay more rupees for the dollars that we owe. So that's one thing. What I would like to see is, and I think that is part of the Prime Minister's agenda, is to invite direct investment into Pakistan and to create stakes of both Saudi Arabia and other countries in Pakistan, so that there is a win-win situation and we stop relying on debts, which we seem to have this interminable cycle. And it's not doing anything towards either solving the problem or towards the development, the basic fundamental policy changes that we need to make.
Right, Ambassador Saab, when the Crown Prince MBS visited Pakistan in 2019, we heard a commitment to invest somewhere around actually $20 billion in Pakistan, and then we heard about this refinery that has to be set up in Gwadar, worth $10 billion. But we haven't heard much about this since then. Do you think that this is going to be revived as well? And can you explain why it might have been put on the back burner so far?
Before you answer, Ambassador Saab, let me just welcome in the debate Sheikh Saleh Batarji, who's a senior analyst from Saudi Arabia. He's also joined us on Skype. Thank you very much, Sheikh Saleh, for joining us in the debate. Yes, Ambassador Saab, you may answer.
Yes, they have shown an interest, and since 2018, we have had this project where they want to invest in a refinery and a petrochemical complex. I think, and Pakistan needs to bend over backwards to facilitate this. Why has this not happened so far? My guess is a lot of bureaucratic red tape. The bureaucracy refuses to move on things because there is this environment of accountability and NAB and whatnot. But you know, when the will is there, the political will is there, and this prime minister is a doer. So I would expect him to cut across red tape and to be able to bring this kind of investment into Pakistan, bring these projects to fruition. These are the projects that I'm talking about. They create win-win situations where both of us benefit. They will create employment in Pakistan, and they will produce something that will not only be used here, but also be exported to other countries. Again, we're talking about the current account deficit or the balance of payments problem that we have. So
Right.
I'm very hopeful that something will come on this.
Right. Sheikh Saleh, thank you for joining us in the debate. We're, of course, talking about Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's visit to Saudi Arabia and what we hope will be the outcome of this visit. Of course, it has been spoken in the past as well, and even now the Prime Minister, before departing for Saudi Arabia, spoke about the importance of this relationship for Pakistan. It is also the main visit of the new government and the new Prime Minister. And, of course, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan have enjoyed cordial relations for a long time. And this, of course, is an important relationship for our country. But there is a lot of areas that, of course, still perhaps can be explored further and can have potential good outcomes for Pakistan and Saudi Arabia as well. In your perspective, what are the areas that you think are the most important for Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, and what can actually be explored further in this relationship?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't hear you. You're talking to me?
Yes, Sheikh
Yes,
Saleh,
sir.
I'm asking you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Really, it is a very good time now for this visit to have more strong relationship between the two countries, because really we consider the two countries as like brothers. And we have already got a shield from the consulate that we are brothers forever. The thing is, the opportunity in Pakistan, what I've seen when we visited with some business people to the consulate, it was very huge opportunities, and they have a potential agriculture, manufacturing, so many items that they can do huge business, inshallah. Same here in Saudi Arabia, they have big booming and big investment opportunities that even the Pakistanis can do. The thing is, the Pakistan population is about 220 million. And, we have already available here in Saudi Arabia about more than 2 million of Pakistanis. This makes the opportunity for the investment. It is very huge opportunity, and we can, inshallah, do a lot of that. And this is a good time to have this visit. I think that I'm talking about the private business, that inshallah they will open the gate for the both Pakistani and Saudi to make investment in both countries with some good regulations that may simplify all the issues for both that to have, inshallah, this يعني what the aim of the business, just to get more business and more opportunity and more security for the both of the country.
Right. Ambassador Saab, let me ask you about this Saudi investment conference. Earlier you were talking about the red tape and the attitude of bureaucracy. I remember that Prime Minister of Pakistan, the former Prime Minister, was given this unique opportunity to speak, be the keynote speaker there. And this opportunity keeps on coming back. But we saw that the speech that was given there was very generic. Is it not important for our bureaucracy also to prepare presentations and pitches so that wherever we go, we have a ready list of items where any country can invest and where we can explore further opportunities as well?
Yes, let me talk about opportunities that may be specific to Saudi Arabia at this stage. I think His Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman is very keen to equip Saudi Arabia for the future in terms of its economy going forward, looking at a time when oil may be much less of an export and they would have to rely on things like tourism and industrialization to be able to train their people to produce goods and services that would be bought by people elsewhere in the world. So where Pakistan can help in this regard, especially in the IT sector. Now, Saudi Arabia can collaborate, or Saudi companies can collaborate here. We have a great culture of startups that have been very successful. Our services are much more competitive than India's, for instance. To give you an example, the salary of an IT professional in India is the same in Indian rupees as it is in Pakistani rupees here. So the Indian rupee is about twice the value. So we are very competitive, and that is one area in which we can collaborate with Saudi Arabia because of the vision of His Highness. He is someone who is tech savvy and is very aware of these opportunities. The other aspect, of course, was mentioned, agriculture. Extremely important. What I feel today globally when we have catastrophes like the war in Ukraine or the pandemic, it causes energy prices to rise. It causes food scarcity and food prices to rise. And in the past, Saudi Arabia has shown an interest in investing in developing agricultural land from the point of view not only of a commercial venture, but also as food security. So that is an opportunity again where there can be a win-win situation. We need to offer them land which has not been developed here yet, and large tracts of land which they can come and invest in. For us, it will create employment opportunities, but for Saudi Arabia, it will create food security and also many commercial opportunities that can come out from it. Once they are here in the agriculture sector, we have water management opportunities, we have storage facilities, we have cold chains, farm to market infrastructure, all kinds of opportunities that will be very, very lucrative to them.
Exactly, sir. Sheikh Saleh, if we keenly look at the security situation of Pakistan, we know that the economy of Pakistan is feeling this squeeze just because of one reason, that it has seen terrorism for 15 years. Terrorism of nature which is far larger than Saudi Arabia itself is seeing today from Yemen. We know that the only reason behind it was that we had a neighbor, Afghanistan, which was troubled, and right now, of course, there is a humanitarian crisis out there, and more than 95% of the population is living under the poverty line. So right now, the biggest concern for Pakistan is that if anything goes wrong within Afghanistan, of course, the influx would be coming to Pakistan. So could we say that in the current scenario, of course, our Prime Minister would be talking to the power hubs of Saudi Arabia to contain that effect, and what are the steps that could be taken by both of the countries to contain that?
I think this is a very important issue regarding the investment in both countries. It should be in a safe environment, and I think that they already put some regulation just to have security for the business people, to have a safe environment in both countries. Actually, last we have announced that even the foreigner can just get investment in Mecca and Medina for buying the buildings and this one. This is a new regulation now for the investment coming in Saudi Arabia. In Pakistan, like Excellency mentioned about the lands and this one, both are, inshallah, giving a push to have good, inshallah, a business relationship between the both countries. I think that now it's a time for both of us to think that to build a good relation, because it's a long time for hold.
Right,
In,
absolutely, Sheikh Saleh.
yeah.
And you're right that this is important, but when we talk about the kind of concerns or perhaps the expectations that we have from Saudi Arabia, we have a fair idea what Pakistan would expect or would want out of this relationship as well, or this visit in particular. And you heard what Ambassador Nasir Saab was earlier talking about with reference to perhaps what would be a win-win situation for Saudi Arabia as well. But I also want to understand your perspective in terms of how Saudi Arabia looks at Pakistan, what it hopes to achieve with its relationship with Pakistan, and what are Saudi Arabia's interests in our country.
Yeah, I think, sorry, because you talk very fast, I couldn't get exactly what you mean. But it is a good now to have a chance to make a big start for both countries in business.
Right. Allow me to actually go to Ambassador Saab. Ambassador Saab, I found your answer very fascinating. And I tell you why. There is an element of competition. There's a Tom Hanks starrer movie called The Hologram for the King. And it shows how the kind of competition that we see when it comes to pitching to our Saudi brethren. There are umpteen opportunities now in Saudi Arabia, especially the new city in Tabuk called Neom, which is going to be a futuristic city there too, and tourism and everything. But do you think that we have the wherewithal to actually pitch for such projects and get a substantial part of that business as well?
Well, this is a project which is about $500 billion worth. I'm pretty sure that there are opportunities there for everybody. The fact that the Pakistani rupee is at an all-time low makes our goods and services much more competitive. So that is one point that we need to exploit. The other thing, of course, is in the Prime Minister's visit, he should discuss with His Highness the opportunity of training people from now for future requirements of manpower. You know, we have had, starting from the early 60s, a lot of construction has been done by Pakistanis in the Middle East. And apart from that, we have had military personnel. There was a time when 20,000 Pakistani troops were in Saudi Arabia. So these are areas that we can increase cooperation in. As far as the future is concerned, or as far as the risk of terrorism is concerned, IT is one area where even if there is terrorism, it is very easy to export IT because it does not go through ports. It does not go in a shipping container. So in the worst of times, I remember when there was a bomb blast in the Marriott, it had damaged the building next door, which was a major IT center. But they were up and running in less than 24 hours. So that is an area which is very, very important for the future. Artificial intelligence, automation, these are the technologies of the future, and Pakistan can offer a great deal to Saudi Arabia, not only in cooperating and supplying the services, but also training people over here in Pakistan. There are many, many opportunities that exist over there. As far as construction is concerned, of course, we are not, our companies are not capable of.
Right.
Right. There seems to be
Absolutely.
some communication
Ambassador
breakdown.
Ambassador, can you hear us? We have a question for you. Yes, Farrukh.
Ambassador Saab, I just wanted one very quick clarification. You were talking about exporting more workforce to Saudi Arabia. Currently, we have 2 million Pakistanis working there. Are you telling us that there's potential to increase that number?
Absolutely. With these new projects coming up, as you have mentioned yourself, this is a colossal project. This is a 500 billion, not million, it's $500 billion project. So we need to be geared for the time when they need the labor force over there. We need all kinds of engineers. We don't just need low-level laborers. We need a lot of people that will be involved. We have companies that are already competing abroad in Iraq and other countries, and in Kuwait. They can compete. They can provide services at a very competitive rate.
Yeah. Sheikh Saleh, if we look at the Saudi investors, of course they have already invested in the food sector in African countries, and as earlier former Ambassador Nasser, he rightly pointed out that Pakistan of course has a land and Pakistan is an agricultural country. Of course there are so many opportunities for Saudi investors to invest in Pakistan's agriculture sector for the food shortages, or Saudi Arabia can turn Pakistan into a breadbasket for themselves. So is there sort of work going on, or is there a thought that is prevailing within Saudi Arabia as well, looking at this context? And could we see that in coming future there will be investors, Saudi investors, thinking about putting money in agriculture sector of Pakistan, sir?
Really, alhamdulillah ta'ala, we have so many visitors there interested to do business in Pakistan. And we have so many Pakistanians, they want to do business in Saudi Arabia. As I mentioned, His Excellency, about the 2 million, I think that we have a big construction opportunity here to do construction, and for the Pakistan, for the fruits and this agriculture, and for manufacturing, and even for the power plants. We have, and from the mining, this now, it depends on how we simplify the procedure for the investor. Then we can give them a push to do more and more business in both countries. I think that alhamdulillah ta'ala here we have very, very simple regulation, and very they minimize the fees for most of the investment needs here. I think that we need from Pakistan to have this more push, like they make some arrangement for the guarantee for the Saudi investor to have secure business opportunity make
Absolutely.
facilitation. What I
Absolutely,
mean,
and that is an avenue that can be explored further as well. Ambassador Nasser, when we look at the relationship between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, of course, when we're discussing issues of interest to just Pakistan, there's also more to the relationship in terms of the interests that we share, perhaps, with the entire Muslim Ummah as well. Issues such as Islamophobia or such as the role of that the OIC can play. And Saudi Arabia, of course, is a country that carries a lot of significance in these issues as well and can play a leadership role in these matters. Can Pakistan also perhaps take the front along with Saudi Arabia in matters of not just Islamophobia, but perhaps something that is of global concern of Muslims around the world, such as conflicts that concern Muslim countries and the issues that different Muslim nations face around the world?
Yes, yes, they can. Saudi Arabia has always been a leader at the OIC. The Secretariat of the OIC is in Jeddah, and Saudi Arabia can play a major role in all these areas that you have just mentioned. But let me come back to what Sheikh Saleh just mentioned regarding the ease of doing business. This is a very, very important point. We truly need to have a one-window operation, which despite all our efforts is not there. We need to have a special office in Riyadh where the Saudi investor can go and be briefed about all the opportunities that exist. And that commercial officer should hold the hand of the Saudi investor and take him through the whole procedure. And when he comes to Pakistan, at the Board of Investment, we should truly have a one-window operation so that if he is making an investment, he doesn't have to spend 3 months in getting his land registered or 2 months in getting an electricity connection. All this should be done from one window. And this is very, very important. The other point the Sheikh mentioned was the security. I'm glad to say that we do offer sovereign guarantees for the investments that are made here. And under the policy, the equity of the investor is guaranteed by the government of Pakistan. And mashallah, we have not defaulted once on any of our sovereign guarantees.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Nasser and Sheikh Saleh, for joining us and being part of the debate and speaking to us with regards to Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's visit to Saudi Arabia and our relationship with the country and the outcomes that we hope to see. We're now going to move on to our second segment, which focuses on the situation in Sri Lanka. And as we were discussing earlier, the economic challenges that exist for a country are very important and, of course, are huge in terms of what needs to be done about it. Unfortunately, Sri Lanka is in a bad situation at the moment with regards to its economic crisis that is going on. And with reference to that, we've seen that the IMF and the World Bank have also been in talks with Sri Lankan leadership. And there has been a talk with regards to what sort of assistance can be provided to the country. Farrukh, when you look at what is going on in Sri Lanka, of course, one hopes to never be at that point.
Right.
But the situation that Sri Lanka is in right now, what sort of outcomes or ways there are for a country to be able to revive its economy from such a situation?
Right, Sana, we have seen Sri Lanka actually going to pieces. The way its economy has just collapsed was frightening. Inflation has gone through the roof. The cost of usual commodities have actually doubled over 1 year.
Right.
And actually within a week, we saw last month, the prices actually were increasing by leaps and bounds. And then we saw the currency actually almost collapsing and the country defaulting. This
Right.
is not something new. We saw a similar kind of thing happening in Hambantota, right? Once again, what has been actually hampering or negatively impacting Sri Lanka's policy outlook and its economy is the way they have been borrowing at the rates they have been borrowing, right? I told you, I think last time also, in 2017-18, I went to Colombo, and the airport there is only 22 kilometers away from the city, right? And there was a motorway, a 2-lane motorway, like you have from here to Peshawar. And there I was asked, can you guess how much money has been spent on it, borrowed money? and that was their rupee their currency is called rupee, and the total cost of those 22 kilometers was somewhere around 36 billion rupees. Just think, 1.5 billion rupees per kilometer.
Right.
That if there's corruption must be involved, there must be so much going on. Because of that, the kind of loans they took were
Right.
really impossible. Yeah, you want to say something?
Absolutely. No, I just also want to welcome in the conversation Mr. Amir Zafar Durrani, who's a Syrian economist and President Re-Energia. Thank you very much, Mr. Amir, for joining us. We're, of course, talking about the situation in Sri Lanka, and we've seen that the IMF has spoken about how the discussions with Sri Lanka have been fruitful. But again, there are, of course, measures that Sri Lanka will have to take to be able to revive itself from the situation it is right now. And of course, the kind of aid that is going to be received from the IMF or the World Bank will come at a price with reference to the kind of measures or strategies that need to be employed. In the long run, can Sri Lanka actually be able to employ those measures to be able to get those packages from the IMF as well, and then of course to be able to be on a sustainable path?
And would you also comment on this $600 million commitment by World Bank? Is it going to actually improve the quality of economy right now?
Well, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Am I audible?
We
Yes.
can.
Okay. So, I mean, I'll start with the latter question, Farrukh, and essentially the answer is this is kind of, they're caught between a rock and a hard place, between the devil and the deep blue sea. I can use many metaphors on this, but basically there is no other choice because at this particular point in time, they have to resort to getting the fund to come in. Now, to the earlier question, is this going to really do something for the economy of Sri Lanka? Now, I think you've commented on most of it, Farrukh, prior to asking me these questions. But let me highlight a couple of things there. The first thing that we need to understand about Sri Lanka, and I want to be very clear because I think when we talk about Sri Lanka, and I think everybody's caught on to talking about Sri Lanka because we feel that Pakistan isn't exactly going to be in the same spot, or we have lessons to learn from Sri Lanka. So I think barring the political lessons, there's not much that we should be raising alarm bells in terms of the comparison between Sri Lanka and Pakistan, and we'll talk about that later. But first, coming back to Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka really has been under, so look at the negative side of it. The negative side, which is self-created, is exactly as you said. Sri Lanka has been borrowing. Sri Lanka has, why has Sri Lanka been borrowing? Because Sri Lanka was riding on the tide of emancipation, right? So what was percolating up was this euphoria post the Tamil Tiger surrender. You know, they overcame the resistance movement, the coming in of the Rajpaksa, and then slowly the permeation throughout the bureaucracy of the Rajpaksa family. If there are similarities to Pakistan in this, I guess I'm not going to allude to them. But, you know, coming back, so yes, there is a borrowing spree, but let's look at the positive sides of it. So until 2019, Sri Lanka was looking pretty hunky-dory, right? I mean, there was no pandemic. Yes, there was a bad call in 2018 in terms of raising money. The issue around Ambantota was raising its sort of, if we can call it, ugly head. But coming back, I mean, China is not really the reason of all the grief that Sri Lanka is facing. Sri Lanka's economy, again, three parts to it, just like Pakistan, it is, amazingly. You have remittances, you have tourism. Well, Pakistan doesn't have tourism, Pakistan has remittances, okay? So there is, the similarity ends there. The second part, they rely hugely on their export, you know, so essentially Sri Lanka, in this case, major tea exporter and other service exporters, services in the sense that Sri Lanka lies on the main maritime highways. So Sri Lanka is one of the largest ports of call, both for transit, transshipment, for distribution of marine goods. So you can, and the third part, essentially, we look at, just like Pakistan, they borrow international paper, they raise money to finance projects, development projects for their own growth. Now, until 19, pre-pandemic, we had started looking at Sri Lanka, where industries had actually started moving to Sri Lanka. You please check your facts. You'll find out that in 1819, just like textile industry was contemplating moving to Bangladesh, we were also had a lot of Pakistanis, not just in textile but other industries, contemplating moving to Sri Lanka because you have educated, skilled labor there, unlike Pakistan, and it's a relatively calm, peaceful island. People are happy-go-lucky. So essentially, you had a lot of euphoria. Then comes the pandemic. So pandemic does a double whammy on them. And there's also the bombings, if you remember, the terrorist attack, that also did two things. So you have the fall in tourism, fall in remittances. So what are you doing? 2/3 of how you earn your Forex is going down drastically. You then have a plethora of loans coming in. So there are some natural causes. So now let's get to where we are today. Where we are today is essentially, if the fund comes in, the fund's going to just anchor the economy, stabilize the economy. It's not going to cause any growth. It's going to cause Sri Lanka to look inwards. But how much inwards will Sri Lanka have to look? Because the 3-4 conditions that fund's going to impose is what the fund already does. The fund is a stabilizing agent. So the fund comes in, as you've already read probably in the articles that they've negotiated. Number one, free float the exchange rate. So obviously, which was already done 2 years ago, but now it's going to go through the roof. Sri Lanka is actually going to be asked to raise taxes. One of the things that is similar to Pakistan, also it's going to be the same in India and more so in Nepal and in Bangladesh, is that we keep our fuel or energy prices artificially subverted. So obviously they're going to have to let them rip. So like Pakistan,
that's a good point. Amir Saab, allow me to actually ask you one more question regarding India's influence. We have seen the way there was this struggle for power or influence going on in 2017-18, the way their government changed and then it kept on changing. Do you think that India has negatively impacted Sri Lanka also?
And also, when we talk about Sri Lanka actually looking for multiple avenues, such as India for bridge financing as well, do you think that this is something that's going to potentially help them or put them on the path towards a vicious cycle?
I think right now Sri Lanka is going to look towards everything for getting some sort of debt relief. So they're going to turn paper with China. For sure. They're going to talk to India, for sure, because India is, it's almost like a stone's throw away over the water. They're also going to talk to Pakistan, surprisingly, because as you know, one of the core things that need is grain. So in terms of food, Pakistan has had a bumper crop. So I foresee a discussion between Sri Lanka and Pakistan. And you know that Sri Lanka and Pakistan enjoy quite a deep relationship within the SAARC circle. What is the Indian influence going to do? So I think, let's not say India's had a negative influence because, historically, yes, India, but the part of India, what India has been playing in Sri Lanka, in Nepal, has also hit India internally. So if you look at the Naxalite movement in India, you'll see that a lot of what India tried to do abroad, it kind of hit home. But the current India dispensation, is really neither for or against Sri Lanka. Let's be very. India is so involved right now in being Hindu, if I may be very forthright, that I don't think it's too focused on what's happening in Sri Lanka. So if Sri Lanka goes there and some deputy or additional secretary in the Department of Economic Affairs and DA in India decides to, give a bill, some sort of support or financial write-off to Sri Lanka, that is likely to happen. But will that have a positive or a negative impact? I think that nobody will have a more negative or positive impact than the Rajpaksas themselves. I think that's the core thing, Farrukh, and so that if you really ask me, that it's really going to be a game for political survival. And I think, sorry, go ahead.
Right, no, continue, please.
Continue, sir.
Yeah, so I think that my last comment on there is that, somebody asked me the other day on a similar program that, do you think the Rajpaksas will leave? And I said, that's a very strange question to be asking. It's a bit like, you're in trouble and you're really saying that taking away the Rajpaksa sort of political power right now is going to leave a vacuum. So let's not talk about the change of government. Let's talk about can this current government sustain the multiple blows? Because as you've already seen, the two things that are happening in Sri Lanka, you have seen some bit of civil unrest, not some bit, a little bit more than normal, right? And the government has been forced to bring out the army. Now, Sri Lanka is a very small island. Let's get our heads together. So it's not really the story of Pakistan, but yes, there has been civil unrest. But I think the story again, which is not doing the rounds in Pakistan, is that under this civil unrest is a layer of opportunity. You see a lot of grassroots civil movements that are really saying, let's rethink what does it mean to be Sri Lanka. So there's a lot of people. It's kind of it's not a polarization per se, but I think it's very similar to what Pakistan is undergoing right now, but for very different reasons.
Right. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we're
much.
out of time, Mr. Amir Zafar, for joining us. You were here for a brief amount of time, but it was very enlightening to have you on the debate. And of course, what we hope for is for Sri Lanka to also be able to stand on its feet, and of course for Pakistan's economic challenges to also be met with positivity and progress. And that, of course, is the hope, not just from our visit to any other country, but of course on the domestic front as well. We want to be able to take measures in the long run to help ease the economic situation and difficulties that currently we live in. And that's the hope for everyone around the world as well. Thank you for watching the debate.